Hi everybody, this is Scott Dudley from Funnel Fella Radio, and today my special guest is Sean Withford, who's based in Sydney, Australia. He's the founder of an agency called Eloquent, who use digital marketing combined with advanced sales psychology to help you win the hearts and minds of your customers. Welcome to the show, Sean. Are you ready to rock and roll?
I can't wait, and thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Sean. Not a problem. All right, so let's get straight into it and sort of go back to your, the beginning and your background and how you first got into marketing and funnels.
Yeah, of course. So I actually started out my career after uni with one of the big brand ad agencies, called McCann Erickson. So this is going back 20 years ago now. So and I was working on Microsoft, MasterCard. I launched Vanilla Coke in Australia once upon a time. The old Paddle Pop line commercials, we used to make those. So I actually started out in that environment. And then and this was before funnels. This was before Facebook. And it was like pre-Google having any dominance as well. I think it was around, but it was very small. And so back then there was a lot of like big brand TV commercials. It was, recreating artwork in 50 different sizes and getting it to all of the different magazines on time and newspapers. So that was where I started out in marketing and advertising. I kind of had a detour. I interviewed with a recruitment agency for some client marketing side role that they had advertised. But at that interview, they convinced me that I'd make a wonderful recruiter. So I actually ended up having about 6 or 7 years in that space. But a lot of that time was spent launching their advertising and media recruitment business, right? So I was placing creative directors into ad agencies and strategic planners and account execs and all that sort of stuff. So, but then from that recruitment industry, I was real lucky. So I was using LinkedIn a lot as part of what I was doing. So I moved into a company where I was helping them with their recruitment, and actually was one of the very first employees at LinkedIn Australia. So, I was really lucky to get in there in the ground floor. I think I was like number 4. It was still a small platform. LinkedIn had maybe like a couple of hundred employees, globally. And then was there for about 6 years and really saw that grow out. Right. And so when I was there was a lot of staffing industry and recruitment industry, but also then it's all B2B. Right. And so you're working with clients on how do they build their brands, how do they use the tools in there to acquire customers. So it's skewed towards like a lot of the LinkedIn paid traffic management, and then like Sales Navigator and all their sourcing platforms. Yep. So yeah, and so I ended up running I feel braggy, but it was a high performing sales team there. So they actually were the first team in the globe to hit their annual number at LinkedIn a couple of years running, which was pretty cool, because there's, their type of business that could attract some really good talent from around the world. So I was proud of that. And then, but one of the big challenges I could see with a lot of our clients, they were investing a lot of money on LinkedIn in terms of sponsored content and ads and those sorts of things. But, and I think at the time I didn't even properly know the word funnel. But what I cause me as a sales guy, I was like, well, they're running awareness, but I knew that they didn't have a back end, right? Like there was something missing because they're doing all of this awareness and all of this attention, top of the funnel type content, and they're spending hundreds of $1,000s there. But then, arguing that they they weren't seeing ROI because it was only the attention, but without anything else that they needed. And so that was the genesis of Eloquent. So I went out on my own. It was, calling it a company at that, the Eloquent business at that time. I was, I was probably a freelancer with about 3 clients, but it evolved, right? One of my old clients I brought on as a business partner. So he was the global head of digital from a big company, and we sort of scaled out from there. And even with funnels, right? We started out, there's a very long answer to your question. But we started out as very content and social media ish. And I reckon it took about a week and a half before someone's like, hey, these social posts and blogs haven't made us any 30 grand sales yet. And you're like, yeah, you're right, they haven't. It's brands. And you learn real quickly that people they want to be driving some tangible ROI. And then like the extension from there is we probably went down that inbound approach and that HubSpot inbound type model. But even then it's got restrictions, you know, because most businesses aren't sitting there with big inside sales teams to
True.
like properly use that engine. A lot of companies, you know, don't have the sales infrastructure to make inbound work potentially the way that they should. And so then for us, like funnels and acquisition and demand generation and all of those types of things really became important for us. And we're doing, so that's what we do now, right? So we go into a business and we first of all do some voice of customer work. So it's, hey, like, you know, let's get closer to your customers and find out what they want. So, you know, the click funnels phrase would be like helping them understand the hook and the offer.
Yeah.
Because most businesses are doing a bad job of that.
True.
Yeah. And then turning that into acquisition engines, like, you know, landing pages and nurture sequences and integrating with sales teams, and then rolling that out. So we do voice of customer. We try to use some smart sales psychology, like being that point of difference, and then start to plug that into kind of like enterprise grade B2B acquisition engines.
Okay, cool. And yeah, when you mentioned the vanilla Coke, I got excited too. I used to love that. Like, I think it came out about 20 years ago. I don't drink Coke anymore, but back then I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
It was ill-fated. It wasn't my fault. We had to like mostly just take the ads from there was a lot of taking the ad from North America and adding a .au on the end of it. You'd make your own creative, but that used to happen a lot with that stuff. But you'd have like your trade and channel strategies and those sorts of things. Yeah. When I was on Microsoft Xbox and also like we was in Windows XP or the 2000s, was like back when I was there as well, like the very first Xbox.
But it didn't last, did it? They got rid of the vanilla Coke, or is it still around?
Yeah. I think it only lasted about like a year on the shelves.
Yeah.
It's not one of my greatest accomplishments.
Okay, I thought it was nice, but yeah. Anyway, just interesting. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
That was that long ago.
Cool. All right. So you've already sort of talked about this a little bit, but can you go into a little bit more detail about Eloquent and maybe sort of what sort of services you provide and how you approach marketing for your clients?
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, I'm conscious a lot of the people like that are listening, you know, build their own funnels. And, you know, so as I tell you this, it's not a pitch. I'll tell you the problem that we used to have, right? And so particularly if we're doing enterprise B2B stuff, it can take a few months to build out a funnel and you're putting a lot of time and a lot of money into it, you know, if you're there on ClickFunnels, it's fast, but that's not, you know, necessarily how some enterprise SaaS business on Salesforce is setting up the funnels. So it's not how they play and operate. So you've got to like work to build funnels in the way that they do. One of the things that would hurt is, you know, spending 3 months and like building out this thing that, you know, is created based on assumptions rather than some validated data. And like, you know, we like putting a lot of money and time behind it. And then everyone's unhappy at the end. Yeah. It's like, so the thing that we then started to do differently was say, okay, well, what resonates with an audience? And so you want to get as close to your audience as you can. And then it's how do I make the offer more compelling? Right. So how do I get closer at the beginning? How do I make the offer more compelling? And then how do I validate it faster? Right. Like how do I streamline that thing? So we sort of actually tried to solve that by doing more customer research. And so we'll always kick off with a client doing voice of customer. And so there's two main ways you do that. One is like qualitative. So go talk to them. And then number two is quant, go try to find some data. So qualitative, we go actually like we interview their clients and we do this thing. We call it the Dickens process. It's, you know, like it's that, you know, Christmas past, present, future, that whole thing with Scrooge. Right. And so we think like, you know, from their client perspective, like, can we talk with a couple of current clients, a couple of past clients, like people who have churned, a couple of like future clients who are their ideal ones. And with that, we're building a persona, but we're really trying to map out frustrations of where they are, desires of where they want to be, and then the questions that they've got on that journey between the two. So it's a persona, but you kind of like, you're getting the story and like the exact language. Like when they talk about their problem, do they use this phrase or that phrase, right? And like, because often your customers describe your own product so much better than you do.
Yep.
And so all of that voice of customer from the qual, and then you do quant, right? And so we'll go on to review sites and, for lack of a better word, we'll scrape it. But
Yep.
then you can build word clouds, right? So with, you know, the 5-star reviews and the 1-star reviews and the 3-star constructive, like let's make a word cloud of each of those, right? Then when people love your product or similar or relatable or comparable products, what do they love? When they hate it, what do they hate? And then in the questions, those 3 stars, what's the productive feedback on how you can do better? So you take that qualitative and you quantitative and you build it into this, like this arc of this persona of where am I, where I want to be, what do I need to know in the middle. But it's, you can then go validate that with your audience and go, hey, like, does this sound like you? And they're like, yeah. And then using that, that's where we'll ideate funnel ideas, but it's specifically based off their things, right? And so say you're doing a headline for an offer, and you know, thinking about a funnel scripts or something, if it's, you know, get more of this without this, you know, in acceptable time frame, right? Now you know exactly what to put in those, or the variations that you should test, right? Here's the big 5 pains, here's the big 5 outcomes, here's the phrases that they use, here's the doubts that they've got in the middle, and you start to be able to plug that voice of customer straight into that funnel framework. So using voice of customer to complete the funnel was one of the things that we started to do to really get a lot closer, because most companies don't know, particularly like if we're dealing with the marketing person, like the marketing person's never gotten a call with a customer. The marketing person, they've never attended.
They're just guessing, aren't they?
It's wild. Like, you know, and I guess I've worked in marketing and sales, but like as a marketer, you absolutely must like go on sales meeting with your team. Like you must sit on a call. Like you will learn more in that hour than you have in the last year. Like you got to be sitting inside of those things.
It's the only way, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's like, because you got to hear the objections and like you get to see those light bulb aha moments where you're like during a presentation or the demo that the client's like, yeah, I get the value of that. Like, so if you can see that and be a part of it, it's so much easier to make your stuff more compelling. But yeah, so we did that. We did this voice of customer, and then which was cool, and it made a big difference. And then the next thing that we did, and also we found a lot of companies may not have had well-defined positioning. And if you do that voice of customer, it was also easy for us to go, hey, like, you know, thinking about how you talk about your product and the problem it solves, is this, right? Like you can turn it into like a nice, clear statement. I think ClickFunnels and that community do a really good job of in creative advertising. You've got a lot of marketers trying to be clever, and it's, you know, as like they're coming up with strap lines like innovation and like it doesn't mean anything to the person who's the buyer. And it's like, if you can actually say achieve this outcome and no longer have this pain using this process, like that's way more resonant and way more effective than a clever double entendre.
Very true.
But then what we started to do is we made this thing called the Wheel of Persuasion. And so like if anyone's Dr. Robert Cialdini, he's got that book Influence. And like there's some great, like, you know, it's just a must read. And then from that, though, there's also then a lot of like some of the more recent stuff around neuro marketing and behavioral sales psychology. And so we've sort of broken out, I think we've got like 16 at the moment. It keeps changing as we find things that we like and add. But what we'll do is like you get the voice of customer and you know what the challenges and the desires and the questions are. And then we'll look at this wheel of persuasion and it's like, all right, well, how do I make a scarcity ad based on this? So how do I make a social proof or an authority based on this? So you can then just start to like using these different angles, like using these different angles combined with your voice of customer creates your social posts, your emails, your content calendar, and then all of the like the headlines and the structures of your funnel, like they all become really clear and really easy to do, like even at an enterprise level, once you've got those two pieces stuck together. Like you've got the, yeah, so that's what we're doing, right? It's like, it's still
Very cool.
funnels. Yeah. It's like, it's, it one of the challenges, like for anyone that's like running an agency as well, probably feel this, like when you're trying to scale a business, but when people buy you, like you only scale so far, right? Like you as an individual can only do so much. And then when you build a team, the friction that you get is someone's bought into you, but your team's delivering the work and they feel like you've catfished them a little bit,
Yeah.
And so what becomes so important is actually what they need to buy into as your methodology.
Yeah.
So if you've got a defined methodology and process, you don't have a business unless you've got a defined, repeatable methodology and process, because
Yeah.
like you're just going to stay like, the dancing bear and you can only scale so far. It's like, but you need that. And you need people to buy into that methodology, and the methodology needs to work. It's got to make sense. And then you've got a business, right? Then you can start to scale it out and you can put people behind it. And people are like, when they meet you or meet your sales team, they're buying the methodology, not the individual and their experience. And like,
Yeah,
you
makes
just
sense.
have to have that to grow. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of the word cloud as well. Is there a special software or a website that you'd go to set up those word clouds?
Like you can do the word clouds pretty easy. Someone on my team does it, but like I'm pretty sure you can do it in Excel and Canva these days.
Okay.
The hard bit's actually the hard bit's like being able to kind of scrape the reviews.
Yeah. Get the data. Yeah.
Yeah, getting the data. Like you can do it manually, but there's review sites for everything. Like, so we're both in Australia. Like we've got productreview.com.au, and that's got like, if you're thinking about local businesses, like there's like tens of thousands of reviews. But also we'll work with like a SaaS company, but you can go into like G2 and Capterra, like G2, Capterra, like all those sorts of things. Like at enterprise B2B software, you can find stuff still there as well. So even Google reviews, like you can go find Google reviews for their nearest competitors. And if someone's got a fair, you just type in the category, often in the Google Maps listing, the one at the top of the page has the most reviews. So you can like work through those reviews and like build it out, find trends, those sorts of things as well.
Yeah, and there's another one too, Answer the Public, that's sort of got something similar to that. Have you heard of that?
We use Answer the Public all the time. It's really good. It's just like, also clients love it too. You show them a screen grab, but don't tell them where it came from. Because it's like, look, we've done some data-driven analysis on search terms.
Yeah.
But you can pull it up, right? It's amazing. You get all those different semantic search terms that people are looking for. Like, so, because that's another nice little hack, right? Use Answer the Public. And then, CoSchedule has a headline analyzer. So there's a CoSchedule's a bit like a buffer or something. It's a social media curation tool. But they've got a free headline analyzer. So you can put in your headline and it'll be, it's too long, these words are too vague, you need more emotion. So you can start to like add words in, and it improves the score of your phrase. Yeah. It's free. If anyone just Googles CoSchedule headline analyzer. But what you can do is, if you want to like sneakily put together a content calendar real fast, get your main term, pop it into Answer the Public. You'll see all the questions that people are asking. And just copy and paste the popular ones, whip them over into CoSchedule headline analyzer. And that just adds a little bit of sparkle, right? It's like, now you got to put in a couple of unique words in there, or power words, or add a little bit of intrigue, or turn it into a question or a listicle. But yeah, we do that. We used to do a lot of that pre voice of customer, like until we're doing the interviews. We still use Answer the Public and also like Google search trends and data to like flesh out the quantitative bit of that voice of customer as well.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So including yourself, how many team members do you have? I noticed that there's 2 offices, isn't there? There's one in Melbourne, one in Sydney.
Yeah. We've got a team of 7 and that's the direct full-time staff. They're primarily, we've got a GM, I've got my business partner, and then they're kind of digital marketing managers, campaign managers. So they're the operating face of the business, working one-on-one with clients. Sitting behind that, we then do have a lot of freelance writers and graphic designers.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Some of the direct response copywriting and stuff we'll do in-house, so we've got some structure. The reason a lot of the writing in particular is done outside is because we're working with like, mid-tier and enterprise brands on their content. Like they've got a high bar to success on content. There's like some like solid expectations. If we sort of put someone without a lot of industry experience on it, or someone who's a little bit generic, they like can miss some of the nuance, because we're not just doing funnels, right? We're doing the content strategy as well. Here's our little hack, right? So for any of the agency owners listening, this is how we've tried to solve for industry writing. We'll work with a law firm. And so you go find the different industry trade journals, right? So there'll be like, Australian Lawyer Weekly or, whatever it is. You go find the top, and then you just go to the blog and you like go find some articles that you like or resonate.
Yep.
And then they've always got their byline. And so you can swing over to LinkedIn, and like 9 times out of 10, that person's doing freelance writing and things on the side. And so you can go find someone that's already getting published in trade journals based on samples of writing that they like, and then just hit them up via LinkedIn to get them to work for you. So it means that all of the writers that we have are like, industry experts, and we're not spending a lot of time vetting writers or spending a lot of time trying to fix poor quality writing, because we knew what we sourced the right thing in the first place. So like, I shouldn't share that. That's one of our little points of difference, but it works, right? So, so we've got a big bench of writers, because it's all like, there's almost as many writers as clients, because they're all kind of tailored to the client that we're founding on. So okay. So like SaaS clients will have a experienced SaaS writer, and the person who writes for an accounting client is a CFO. And one of the guys that writes for one of our sales company, he's actually VP of sales at Cisco, but he loves copywriting and freelancers on the side, so it's like each of those clients is almost mapped to this person that's producing stuff, but they're from within the industry as well.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Specialized. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Well, and I like, you're going to pay for your copy one way or another. So you're going to pay, like, if you get cheap copy, you're going to pay for it in revisions and annoyed clients.
Yeah.
Or you can pay for it in terms of an experienced person. And like a lot of revisions and unhappy clients is more expensive than good writing.
Yeah. Makes sense. I agree. Yeah. Cool. All right. So you've already mentioned that you worked at LinkedIn for a few years. So I'm just wondering what sort of advice you'd have for customers wanting to use LinkedIn for lead generation.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so LinkedIn's an awesome platform. Like, if you're, and obviously I'm biased, but also I don't work there anymore. I'm about 4 years out. So, when it comes to lead gen, like, I would think about there's 3 different components that you want to be thinking about. So the first of all is thinking about what your personal brand is on there. And like, I know often on funnels where we're trying to think about the fastest path to success, but success is a lot easier when everyone knows you, right? It's like,
absolutely.
And so the first thing I would think about is your own profile, both being your LinkedIn profile and then your level of presence in your market. So like, craft a good profile. And the mistake that people make is they build a LinkedIn profile. They build it like a resume when they should build it like a sales page, right? So if I go look at your LinkedIn profile and it's like, I've got 5 years here, 3 years here, 2 years there, like, that's fine if I was looking to hire you. But like, if you're out there and you're trying to grow your business or make sales, then your LinkedIn profile should be a sales page, right? Like, do you have a hook? Do you have a story? Do you have an offer? Like, there's these places where you can put links to your content, right? Like you can link up to, like, if you've got like a webinar funnel, like you can link up to all of your different webinar funnels and landing pages and lead magnets. Like you can link up to those in the resource section. You can customize the header image on your LinkedIn profile. You can have calls to action there, like check out my free training on, .com/whatever, right? So like you can turn that page into a lead gen page. And then, so think about your profile in terms of that. And then also think about content. You talked about answer the public before. One of like, you can jump on your webcam exactly like we're doing now and bust out videos, literally just answering questions that you can see there on tools like Answer the Public. And like 3 minutes of adding value and answering questions that your ideal target client has is one of the fastest, most effective ways to then start to build your presence in that audience. So get that done first. You'll get some inbound, you'll get some acquisition, but also it means that when you start to reach out to people, you're going to get better success. So let's talk on to the next. So the next part of lead gen is then how are you like prospecting, right? So if I'm on there reaching out to people, that third thing I'll talk about is paid. But when we're thinking about prospecting, like my main advice is if you don't have Sales Navigator, get it. Like that thing's insane value for the hours that it saves you. Like it's really powerful. It's really effective. And you should be on there. A lot of people, have tested and tried different LinkedIn automation tools and those sorts of things. I personally don't use them. I am aware of their existence in the past, but it's too risky for me, man. Like I've spent so long building my network and my relationships. I've got like 30,000
you could lose it all.
Yeah, right. So like I'm not touching that stuff, but it's it's out there, and so for some people that is a consideration. But I stay away from that. It's like for me, it's then, so I'm not using automation sequences, but I might create my own little script and things and use that for outreach. My main advice to anyone using Sales Navigator, if you're prospecting and trying to grow your business, as an early sales mentor said to me, change has a budget. In Sales Navigator, you can go see like leadership roles in your target accounts in the last 90 days. And generally when there's a new decision maker somewhere, they tend to make new decisions. So that function in particular works really well, right? So go save like parameters around your ideal client, right? So where, our ideal client tends to be a CMO or, marketing manager in a mid-sized company. I'll set up filters for CMO or marketer, like in a new company of a particular size. So I can do those parameters of the size. If it's 10,000 plus people, because it's a bank, like probably not an ideal customer for me. Everything's in-house. If it's a like 10-person business, probably not an ideal customer for me either. We're too expensive. So you just create some parameters and then approach people on that, right? People in leadership who have changed and moved into or left your ideal client, and we'll sort of reach out to them as the sweet spot. So that's my favorite tactic inside of Sales Navigator that I'd really recommend. So number one, build out your profile. Number two, use Sales Navigator to find leadership changes in your target accounts. And then number three is like my favorite paid strategy type of tools. The first one I'd suggest to people, so everyone knows retargeting, and you can retarget with Google. You can retarget. LinkedIn has a pixel too.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah. So you can, and there's a couple of things it does. So the first thing is if you put the LinkedIn pixel onto your website, it gives you really rich data that Google actually can't, right? Because if you're here and you've used LinkedIn, ask yourself the question, when was the last time I hit the log out button? And your answer is probably never, right? Like we just closed the browser. We never logged out of it. Yeah. And so, if I like LinkedIn knows who I am based on my IP and my profile and where I log in. So when I hit a website that's got the pixel on it, it doesn't tell the website owner Sean was there, but it definitely will show you what companies, what sizes, what titles, what countries. So like you can look at your website analytics and see what companies people are coming from and like what their titles are and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah. But in particular, you can then do retargeting using the LinkedIn Pixel and using LinkedIn Engine. And this is one of my favorite little, because LinkedIn's got an expensive cost per click and stuff, but but the value of the audience is higher, right? You just need to be able to make the funnel work. But here's one of my favorite, and it's actually really cost effective. On LinkedIn, you can do a direct message campaign. So rather than, so you can do ads in the news feed and, display and that sort of thing, but you can do a direct message to a person saying, hey, would you be interested in a conversation, or inviting them to a webinar or whatever. So this nice little hack that like no one is using is doing a direct messaging campaign to a website retargeted audience. And so what that ends up being is if, I visit Funnel Fella Radio's website and then the next time I hit LinkedIn, there in my inbox is, hey, it's Scott from Funnel Fella Radio. Notice you're on the website. Like, I'd love to catch up with you about this thing. It's cool, right? It's really cool. So retargeting your website traffic specifically with a direct messessage campaign.
Nice.
Really cool. Super cost effective. Like it's like not a lot of people are running those. Hyper targeted traffic. You can do really personalized. Like it's a pretty straight line to a conversation, right? It's like you're on the website, you want to talk. So that's a really nice little campaign that you can do. There's heaps in there, but you can do account-based marketing and all those sort of strategies. But if you want something fun that's no one's using as a tactic, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. That's amazing.
No one knows. No one knows. It's in there. It's just like the people, like if you think about funnel hackers and click funnels and that community, like, a lot of the information hasn't gone from the ClickFunnels, Facebooky, Google community into the LinkedIn community in terms of strategies. And so, like we all know that retargeting is good, but LinkedIn's got some different ad unit formats, and, just plucking the right one of those out can make for some really nice retargeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. All right then. So other than LinkedIn, what are your favorite online tools and platforms you use to run your business?
Yeah, well, online tools and platforms, like we spend a lot on SaaS. If I was thinking about ads, the other thing that I really love is YouTube ads. So YouTube's cool, right? Like it's owned by Google, so anything Google knows, YouTube knows. Like you can build out some really smart targeted audiences on there. Yeah, on YouTube, you've got the TrueView ad type, which is basically you only pay if someone watches more than 30 seconds of your ad. And so you can build ads that kind of qualify someone out like pretty easily in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you call out a problem straight away, so like for people here, like, hey, you're trying to make your funnels more effective. If you are, you're going to want to spend the next 4 minutes with me because I'm going to show you like 1, 2, 3. If that's not you, like, this video is not going to be for you. But if you ask, like, this is going to be really good, stick around, right? So you can qualify or disqualify people within that first 30 seconds, and you're paying like 7 cents a view, 10 cents a view if they hit past the 30 seconds. But that's amazing. Like $100 gets 1,000 people watching that video. That's and who are pretty qualified up front at the beginning. It's a great traffic source. So yeah, we love YouTube ads too. When it comes to our business, like, look, I'll tell you where I've failed is that we still haven't adapted a proper project management system. So we've used Teamwork, we've used Trello, we've used Monday, and I just haven't made one of them stick and become process. And they're all good tools. It's probably my fault. I should probably just pay someone to like sort it out and get us on there. But I haven't yet. And part of the problem is with our enterprise clients, like no two campaigns are the same the way that, which makes scale harder, but it's just like, it is what it is. No two campaigns are the same. And so, it becomes harder to customize a workflow in there. We use a lot of Zoom. We use a lot of Loom. I'm loving Loom. If everyone like isn't using Loom, like Loom's just a quick Chrome extension, which lets you record fast videos. And then it embeds it into that email. And so if I get an email that's going to take me more than like 2 minutes to type the answer to, I'll just press record. And, it's just like, hey, I got this, you had this thing, you wanted this thing explained to you, here's it here. Like, I'm going to show you it to you on the screen. It means this and this. All right. Like, let me know if you've got any questions. Like, it's like, you can make a half an hour email in like 3 minutes. So, but it's also really good for prospecting. Like following up with clients, sending explanations of things. If I can't get on the phone with someone for a proposal, I'll send them a quick Loom, like outlining some of the key things in there. And that's one deals. So yeah, I really like Loom. I love Meet Edgar, if anyone's as a social media scheduling tool. So if you've used a Buffer or a Hootsuite or something, so what Meet Edgar does that I find superior for our needs is I can essentially create a content calendar based on themes. So Monday's some thought leadership, Tuesday's the top of the funnel offer to bring someone through that way. Wednesday's a piece of industry news, Thursday's some original content, Friday's a testimonial with a link to the funnel in a comment, right? But what I can do is I can create a schedule based on themes for those days, and then I can go create 20 things that like, here's 20 calls to action, here's 20 pieces of thought leadership, here's 20 of these. And basically it goes in and plucks things out of those and rotates them. So rather than me saying next Tuesday, I'm going to do this, I just need to like come up with a few buckets and themes for days, fill those buckets. And then as we make new content, we can just drop it in there and essentially add it to the rotation. So for us, it's been a really time effective way of like managing our content calendar. So like, I really love Meet Edgar. It's been cool. So Meet Edgar, Loom, Answer the Public's a good one. Co-schedule headline thing's a good one. We've talked about them. We've used different all of the different SEO things that people use. We've used and tried. But yeah, probably nothing that surprises people other than maybe Meet Edgar. Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest and most common mistakes that you see clients making?
Yeah. So when it's a founder or where it's an enterprise, so the first is talking too much about themselves, right? So anyone on this call knows that, funnels and click funnels, it's all built around, solving a unique and specific problem for your audience as quick as you can is a great way to build a hook. Whereas for some reason in this like corporate mid-market B2B space, everyone's talking about themselves, right? Here's our unique things about us. So I think like talking about yourself is a big mistake. I think not getting close enough to your customer is a big mistake that people make. So like not doing that voice of customer, not using
like what we talked about.
Like if you're not running ads that use the exact phrase that they used in a review or in their feedback to you, you're making a huge mistake. If you're not running an ad, which is just a picture of their review for you, like run ads of their 5-star reviews to your target audience, like cracking idea. So like, get closer to your voice of customer and like amplify that like good word of mouth stuff as far and wide as you can. And then the other one for me is probably not, in fact, I've got more. So like not validating ideas early. And so like everyone like will build out these mega funnels of, and like it's some of the, like you remember Marketo building landing pages and get through branding teams, and it like takes months. And it's like, you don't know if anyone's going to click the ad yet, right? Like you don't know if like your CPC at the top of the funnel is going to make the unit price economics work for the rest of the entire thing. So you got to test that stuff. Like the earlier you can ask someone to click something or buy something, the earlier you know whether that thing's going to work. We're even starting so when we do that voice of customer, say we come up with 5 different positioning statements for a business, right? Like jump on a Facebook, create ads with the 5 different positioning statements and put $100 behind each one and see which one clicks the most, right? Like people will go spend $1 million in a branding agency, or you could do $1,000 experiment with your ideal customer on like, see which one gets clicked, right? Like there's some like test early. And then my last one is campaign thinking versus uh, funnels with geometric improvement thinking. So campaign thinking is when you've got marketers that it's like, well, this quarter I'm going to do this, then this quarter this, and this quarter this, and I'm going to do 2 blogs and a white paper and an email,
Okay.
and then I'll get like. So there's a lot of campaign thinking, which is how people are like going to market.
Yep.
But really you should be doing funnel thinking, like, because I don't need 1,000 blogs. I need like one system that spits out customers. And it's like, all right, well, how do I do that? And so that's sort of having a funnel thinking. And yeah, sure, you might have the same back end funnel and then scale it with new content pieces that all like lead people back in. But then not doing that. And then the other part of making a funnel successful, Jay Abrahams, if you've ever like heard some of his stuff, he talks about geometric growth, and it's really hard to explain for me. It's probably easy for Jay, but it's sort of like, we know linear growth. So linear growth is sort of a straight line. I increase by 1 client a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Compound growth is I increase by 10% a month. So it keeps getting better like that. Geometric,
just like compound interest.
Yeah. But there's another thing that sits after that, which is geometric growth, right? And so geometric growth is, let's say in a funnel, there's 20 different variables, right? So your click to convert rate, there's your landing page conversion rate, there's your webinar conversion rate, there's your follow-up show sequence, there's your sequence to meeting rate, there's your meeting show up rate, there's your follow-up sequence for a meeting conversion rate, so there's like 15 different places where you can go and improve your funnel. Geometric thinking is saying, rather than trying to make I shouldn't try to improve one bit by 10%. If I go find a 10% increase at 20 points, it's not even a 200% increase. It's like 1,000% increase. So 10% increases isn't 200%, right? Because each of those things is compounding on the other one. So the maths is actually, like the maths is amazing. So once you start to see geometric growth, and you can only get geometric growth if you've got a funnel rather than a campaign, because campaigners, I do this shit for a quarter and then I start again. So there's no geometry to it. You can't
there's no structured process. Exactly.
That's it, right? And it's like, whereas if you've got a funnel, right, like you with a high level of certainty can split test 20 ads and find a winner that's better. And then if you've got a funnel, you can with a high level of certainty split test 5 alternative headlines or open like for your first email and get a 10% increase. And you can test all of your body copy 10 times and get a 10% increase. And you can change your landing page and get a 10%. Like you can absolutely like 10x a funnel by finding those opportunities at each geometric point. But that doesn't work with campaigns, and it doesn't work if you build a funnel and give up. It's like you only get that big.
It's like the Kaizen, isn't it? Where you're just continually improving all the different points in the funnel.
Exactly it, right? Like I think like the point that your funnel launches is when the work begins. Right? It's like everyone think, oh, I've got my funnel. I'll like sit back on.
That's just the beginning. Exactly.
Yeah. I'll like book that trip overseas once I can and go like kick back in a hammock because my funnel's live. It's like, no. But in the optimization for sure is where the money's made. It's, testing your offers, testing your ads, testing your open lines, testing your landing pages, right? Like, and if you think about it, like if adding an SMS reminder to someone to show up at their sales call means 20% more people show up for their sales call, that means your funnel now makes 20% more money, right? Like amazing. It's like, and if you think about the impact of that on your business, and say you were making $1 million a year and now you're making 1.2 because you added a reminder like at that bit of the funnel, it's like how many times can I do that? How many times can I find that? But every time you find that percentage increase, I'm improving the 1.2. I added that little thing, right? Now 20% more people just like show up to their call because there was a reminder, or I made them to commit to it for whatever reason. It's like, so now it's 1.2. So now when you find the next 10% increase, it's on 1.2, not 1. And that's geometric growth. It's like, once you like wrap your head around it, you're like, that's not, that makes money, right? It's like,
Absolutely,
yeah.
Cool. All right. So, what are you curious about or researching right now regarding funnels or digital marketing in general?
Neuromarketing.
Okay.
So we neuromarketing is like a really interesting field. There's all of this stuff that like is coming out. There's like, I'm not a certified brain surgeon or
Yeah.
but but there's some fascinating books coming out. In fact, I should have a reading list in front of me to give everyone. I'll email it through. But there's a ton of books that talk about the why we do things. And so, because on your funnel, I guess you can make tactical improvements, right? Testing things on your landing page and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But adding in an extra follow-up sequence but understanding why people do things and what compels us to action, which all of this new research and understandings coming out, gives you this massive ability to then now you've got something to improve at every part of that journey, because you're like, oh wait, humans do this, not that, and humans like this, not that, and I'm more loss aversion is more important than gain. Whereabouts do I apply that here? So once you start to so there's hundreds of different little cognitive biases and things that we've got, and then but you can test those things and you can find which ones work and which one makes something more compelling and captures attention more. And so I really love that stuff. So for me, neuromarketing is something that I'm geeking out on right now.
The book that comes to mind for me is Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. Predictably Irrational was really good. And that was one of the, I guess one of the first books that really started to tackle this. So that's on the reading list. I think there's Hooked is one that I like. Frictionless was another one. There's some really great books out on this stuff, literally coming out in just in the last 2 years or so. It's this emerging field still.
Exciting.
I'm gonna give you a quick story from one of them, just because it'll be really interesting for everyone, right? So there's a true story. So there's this guy called Elliot. Elliot is mid-30s. He had a high IQ, 130 or something. He's a successful executive. He's married. He's got a fair bit of money in the bank. But then one day he starts getting migraines. He goes to the doctor and they're like, hey, Elliot, I'm really sorry. You've got a small brain tumor here. And they're like, look, it's really operable. We can fix that for you. And Elliot says, okay, that's great. And so Elliot goes in and he gets the brain tumor removed. Over the next 2 years, Elliot loses his job. He gets taken for a ride and loses all of his money from a con artist. He breaks up with his wife. He's unable to get another job. And so he goes to and so he's put into therapy, I think, as part of criminal proceedings, because now all of a sudden he's broken, he's lost everything. And so this therapist notices this weird thing about Elliot, right? And so Elliot can no longer make a decision. So if you say to Elliot, what time can you come next week? And Elliot doesn't have a job, right? Elliot can come any day. But Elliot would sit there and really intelligently, because the whole rational part of his mind is still working. And so this guy with an IQ of 130 would sit there and he would weigh up the pros and cons of coming on a Monday versus a Tuesday, and what time he should be there. And it turns out that what was happening in Elliot's life, right? Elliot would walk into a restaurant, he would look around, he would look at the seating, he would look at where he was going to sit, he would look at the menu, he would look at the server that he had, and then he would get up and he would leave and he would go to the next restaurant and he would do the same thing. If you could ask Elliot whether he wanted a blue pen or a black pen, and then he would just endlessly debate it and couldn't choose a pen. And what had happened was, right, is in Elliot's brain, the emotive part of the brain and the rational part of the brain had been disconnected when they removed this little tumor. And so what happened was it revolutionized our understanding of how humans made decisions, because what everyone believed up until about 15 years ago is that the brain is perfect. Like the prefrontal cortex, the front of our brain, the bit that looks like a walnut, is perfectly rational and Spock-like and can make excellent decisions. But if it weren't for those pesky emotions that get in the way and mess with our decisions. But actually, that's not true. What happens is the emotional part of our brain makes decisions, and then our prefrontal, the rational part of our brain justifies it, right? So Elliot kind of scientifically proved actually that all decisions are emotional, right? And so if you've got a if you've got a perfectly rational brain, but it doesn't have emotion, it can't weigh the value of the rationalizations. So emotion helps us choose the value of rationalizations. And it changed everything, right? And all of a sudden you realize in your brain, we've got this like crocodile reptilian bit up the back, and it's constantly working out if it's like fight or flight, and it's like just helping you breathe and helping you be hungry and helping you feel attracted to something, right? And then you've got this mammalian brain, which kind of grew later and wrapped around it. And that's all about emotions and social status and the group. And is this going to raise a lot? Like Russell Brunson talks about status, right? So that's that part of the brain, the status bit. And then you've got the rational, like when they call it the genius or the rational brain, that then wraps around the front. And that like looks at details and build business cases and all those sorts of things. But if you can't craft a message that hits each part of the brain in the right way, it's because my crocodile brain, the crocodile part of the brain is how I drive home and don't know how I got there. Right? It's like, right? Or like crocodile part of my brain is why I like find myself with a tub of ice cream in the kitchen going like, wait up, like this wasn't the plan, right? Because the crocodile brain just does stuff on autopilot. And that's why if you think about like, you know, everyone's seen a pattern interrupt ad, like someone surprises you with something that's a little bit different. Someone's got a boom or whatever when they start talking. That's a pattern interrupt, which gets the reptilian brain to go, oh, this is novel or different, so I've got to watch, right? And so you've got to satisfy that part of the brain. And then you've got to go to the emotional part of the brain and say, hey, like essentially this is going to make you a higher status monkey, right? Like my thing's going to make you a higher status monkey. And so you've got to satisfy that part of the brain. Then you need to go talk to the front of the brain and build the rational business case. It's like, yeah, this makes sense. There's a like, here's the business case and here's the science and here's the risk removal. And so you need to sequentially move through each of those gatekeepers in your brain for a message to land, right? And like, and that's why purely rational arguments don't work because the rational part of the brain never makes a decision. But yeah, so this stuff is fascinating, right? So that you can see that I am geeking out on it. Absolutely. So that Elliot was a true story. That was in the 80s. There's a guy called Damasio that then did all of the research that wrapped around Elliot. Then it really changed our understanding of how the brain worked and how decisions form and the flow through those, like the reptile brain to the mammalian brain to the logic brain. It's just fascinating, right? It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing.
All right, went on a bit of a rant there.
Yeah, no problem. It's fascinating. But just to wrap up, where can people go to find out more about your services and or your products?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're wanted to chat about anything, so you can visit us at Eloquence, eloquent.com.au. We're here in Australia, but we do work with clients across Asia and the world. You can find me on LinkedIn. So that's Sean, Sean, and then my last name is Withford, Withford. So yeah, you can find me Sean Withford on Eloquent, or feel free to email me. So I'm Sean, Sean at eloquence.com.au.
Perfect. Thanks for being on the show, Sean. That was amazing. I really appreciate your time.
Scott, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm like glad to spend some time with your community.
It was a blast. Okay, take care.
Thanks, brother. Speak to you soon.